Hello, everyone. Tonight, we are sitting in a room where the walls feel like they're listening. The rain outside taps gently on the windows, and the clock ticks louder than it should. My tea is still warm, untouched. A candle flickers near the edge of the desk, casting soft shadows on the wall. The kind of night where nothing seems out of place until everything is. I pick up my phone without thinking. A buzz, a light, a message. That's all it takes. And then the world stops. The screen lights up with 6 words. Simple, sterile, final. My hands go cold. My chest tightens. I reread it, hoping I'm wrong, hoping I misread something, anything. But no, it's all there, just sitting there on the screen, bleeding through every line I thought was secure. This wasn't just a breakup text. It was a goodbye, a revelation, and a betrayal rolled into one. A full collapse in 37 characters. My stomach turned, my throat closed, and I felt like I had stepped out of my life and into someone else's tragedy. How did we get here? That night, I sat in silence long after the message came, replaying every moment we shared, every I love you, every future plan. I didn't cry. Not yet. I was still trying to understand what I had just lost, or maybe what I never had to begin with. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you really like what I do here. And please, let me know in the comments, where are you watching from and when? It helps me feel a little less alone tonight. Now, turn off the lights, maybe turn on the fan to have some soft background music, and let's start our journey tonight. We met on a Thursday. Not a holiday, not a weekend, not one of those days you'd expect your world to change. Just a plain gray Thursday. I was standing in line at the coffee shop with a mind full of work emails and no plans for conversation. And then, he turned around. He had that kind of face that makes you pause. Not because it's perfect, but because it feels familiar. His smile was easy, his voice smooth, like he had been waiting his whole life to say something to me. "You look like someone who needs 2 shots of espresso," he joked, nodding at my tired eyes. I laughed. It wasn't even that funny, but something in me softened. Something in me leaned in. That's what he did from the beginning. He saw the parts of me I didn't show to most people. We talked while waiting. Then we sat by the window, coffees in hand, talking about books, movies, even the color of the sky. The words came easy, like they already knew the shape of each other. There was no awkwardness, no trying too hard. He asked for my number before we left. And when he texted that night, "I still think you needed that second shot," I smiled like a teenager with a crush. That's how it started. Over the weeks that followed, he became the kind of presence that fills your quiet spaces. Morning texts, evening calls. He remembered things, like how I hated cold toast, or how I used to dance to old 90s songs when no one was watching. I remember thinking, this is different. I had dated before, I had loved before, but this wasn't about butterflies. It was about being seen, completely, deeply. One night, after a long walk by the lake, he looked at me and said, "I don't know how I lived before you." I believed him. I let myself believe that maybe, just maybe, this was the kind of love they write stories about. That maybe I'd finally found someone who wasn't afraid to stay. And maybe that's why it hurt so much in the end. Because when someone makes you feel that deeply known, you don't think they'll be the one to disappear. We didn't fall in love. We slid into it, softly, steadily, like the tide creeping up the shore when you're not paying attention. Our first few weeks were a quiet kind of magic. No grand gestures, just consistency. Texts when he said he'd text. Calls that weren't rushed. A kind of presence that felt like safety. That's how you start trusting someone. Not with promises, but with patterns. He'd pick me up after work, always 5 minutes early. We'd get tacos from the stand 2 blocks from my apartment, eat in his car, and talk about nothing for hours. Once it started raining. We rolled down the windows and let the smell of wet pavement fill the air while we sat there in silence. That night, he told me about his sister who passed away when they were kids. I told him about my fear of being abandoned. He didn't flinch. When I cried, he wiped my tears with the sleeve of his hoodie and said, "You'll never have to go through anything alone again." He introduced me to his mom a month later. I remember how she hugged me, soft and unsure, like she had done it too many times before, only to be let down. He watched me the whole time, like I was his bridge to something better. Every piece of our lives started to blur into each other's. I left a toothbrush at his place without meaning to. He made a playlist called Driving With You. I baked cookies for his coworkers. We weren't just dating, we were becoming. A shared rhythm, a shared life. There was a weekend we went out of town, stayed at a cheap cabin near the woods. No Wi-Fi, no distractions, just the two of us and the sound of wind in the trees. We cooked together, danced barefoot on the porch, and made love like we had all the time in the world. In that weekend's silence, he whispered, "I want to grow old with you." I whispered back, "Then don't ever lie to me." He smiled and kissed my forehead. I didn't know then that love can echo through a lie, that someone can say all the right things and still walk away when it matters most. But in that moment, I was all in. And I thought he was too. The first red flag came quietly, almost too quietly to notice. We were at a friend's birthday party, surrounded by laughter and clinking glasses. He was holding my hand loosely under the table, distracted. His eyes kept darting toward his phone. Every time it buzzed, he turned the screen away from me before slipping it back into his pocket. I didn't say anything at first. I told myself, everyone's got things they don't share right away. Don't be paranoid. But when I leaned into him, asking playfully, "Who keeps texting you? Your secret admirer?" He chuckled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Just work stuff," he mumbled. That was it. Work stuff. But it was Saturday night. The next morning, I found myself staring at the ceiling while he slept beside me, wondering why such a small thing was bothering me so much. And that's the thing about red flags. When you care about someone, you fold them into origami. Make them smaller, easier to live with. I brushed it off. A week later, he canceled dinner plans last minute. Something about an urgent call from a client. Except I saw him tagged in someone's Instagram story at a rooftop bar across town. I asked him about it, calmly, no accusations, just curiosity. "Oh yeah," he said, barely blinking. After the meeting, some of the guys wanted to grab drinks. I didn't think it was worth mentioning. Something in his tone made me freeze. It wasn't what he said, it was how he said it. Like my hurt was inconvenient. Like transparency was optional. But again, I let it go. I didn't want to be that girl. The one who checks phones. The one who pushes too hard. Still, that night, when he kissed me goodbye, I noticed how he lingered a little less. How his hands felt a little colder. I told myself relationships go through phases. That I just needed to be patient. To trust. But deep down, I felt it. That tiny shift. Like a crack forming in glass. Barely visible, but growing. And yet, I stayed. Because sometimes when you love someone, you mistake discomfort for growth. You silence your gut in the name of understanding. And sometimes you don't realize you've started losing someone until you're already halfway gone yourself. It was a lazy Sunday afternoon when I stumbled upon the photo. We were curled up on his couch, half watching a documentary we'd both lose interest in by the halfway mark. He got up to grab snacks and left his tablet on the coffee table. It lit up with a soft ding. Nothing dramatic, just a new memory notification. A slideshow had started playing. I glanced down, expecting old vacation photos or pictures of his dog. But then I saw her. A woman. Dark hair, bright smile. Her arms wrapped around him. They were standing on a beach I'd never heard him mention, laughing into the wind like they were the only two people in the world. There were more photos. The same woman. Candlelit dinners. Cozy mornings in bed. Her head resting on his chest. My heart dropped into my stomach. He returned with popcorn and sodas, chatting about how he'd finally mastered the perfect buttery to salt ratio, but I couldn't hear him. I was frozen, staring at that screen, my mouth dry. "Who is this?" I asked, my voice quieter than I meant. He looked down, and for a second, just a second, his face shifted. Not shock, not guilt, recognition. "Oh, that," he said slowly, sitting down beside me. "That's Maya," I waited. "We dated. A long time ago." "How long ago?" I asked. He hesitated. "About 6 months before I met you." I stared at him. "Wait, so right before us?" He nodded, avoiding my eyes. "Why are these still on your tablet?" Another pause. "I guess I never really went through everything. It's not like I look at them." But he hadn't deleted them. They were in his favorites. That memory slideshow was still active. A strange ache bloomed in my chest. Not quite jealousy, not quite anger. Just betrayal's whisper. "You should have told me," I said quietly. He reached for my hand. "It's not important. She's the past. You're my present." I wanted to believe him. And maybe, for a moment, I did. But that night, while he slept beside me, I couldn't stop picturing them together. The way he held her, smiled at her. The way his eyes crinkled at the corners when he laughed. A look I thought was mine alone. I lay there in the dark, feeling like a ghost in someone else's love story. And the worst part? He had made me feel like I was the beginning, when I might have just been his rebound. Things didn't fall apart all at once. They slipped, inch by inch, into something colder. It started with the calls. They became shorter, less frequent. He'd text instead of talk. And when he did call, his voice was different. Distracted, like I was background noise instead of the person he used to crave hearing from. I asked once gently, "Are you okay?" He answered with a shrug. "Just tired. Work's insane." So I believed him. Because when you love someone, you want to believe the excuses. You need to believe them. Because the alternative, that he was pulling away, was too terrifying. He stopped planning things. The surprise dinners, the weekend walks, the little notes he used to leave in my jacket pockets. They vanished. At first, I thought he was just getting comfortable. That maybe this was what love looked like when it settled. But then came the silence. Long stretches of unanswered messages. Delayed responses that read like they were written by obligation, not emotion. The warmth was gone. I kept trying to bring it back, inviting him over, sending him funny videos, being patient. God, I was so patient. And still, he kept drifting. One night, I cooked his favorite meal. Candlelight, soft music, even the wine he always asked for. I wore the sweater he once said made me look like someone he wanted to marry. He canceled last minute. Shooting ran late, rain check. I stared at the plate of pasta growing cold on the table. I didn't cry. I just sat there, staring. That was the moment I realized I was no longer the priority. I had become convenient. A message he'd respond to when he remembered. A plan he'd agree to when nothing better came up. A presence he kept in his life more out of habit than hunger. And still, I stayed. Because there's a part of you, when you've been truly loved once, that keeps whispering, "He'll come back. He's just lost right now." So you cling to the memories, to the way he used to look at you, to the man he used to be. But the truth? That version of him was fading, and I was slowly becoming someone who let herself shrink just to keep someone from walking away. We went out to dinner one night, not because he planned it, but because I begged. It had been nearly 2 weeks since we'd sat down face to face. The air between us had grown so thin I could barely breathe through it. I told him I missed him, that I wanted just one night where we could be us again. He agreed. Not with enthusiasm, but with tired eyes and a mumbled, "Sure. Let's do it." We picked a quiet place. The same restaurant where he'd once whispered across a candlelit table that he was falling in love with me. I wore the same earrings from that night. I guess I was trying to conjure up a ghost, but something was off. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. He asked me how work was, but looked past me when I answered. He laughed at a joke I made, but the sound felt hollow, like a bell that had lost its ring. I tried to ignore it, to talk more, to touch his hand across the table. He didn't pull away, But he didn't hold it either. By the time dessert came, I had stopped eating. I just pushed the fork around my plate and watched him. He didn't notice. It was then I realized I was sitting across from a man who used to crave every minute with me. And now he couldn't wait for the check to come. When it finally did, he paid quickly. No lingering. No walk around the block like we used to do. Just a tired, "I've got an early meeting tomorrow." He kissed my cheek before he turned to leave. Not my lips. My cheek, like a friend. Like someone you owe a goodbye to, but not your heart. And as I stood on that sidewalk, watching him disappear into the night, I felt something sharp and invisible close around me. That wasn't just a bad dinner. That wasn't a bad mood. That was a farewell dressed in politeness. He didn't say it. But he was already halfway gone. And I, like a fool, was still setting the table for two. I stopped sleeping through the night. Every hour felt like a question mark. I'd reach for my phone in the dark, hoping for a missed message, some sign that he still thought of me. But the screen stayed blank, silent, mocking. Mornings became rituals of pretending. I'd force a smile in the mirror, tell myself I wasn't going to reach out first. I'd pour coffee, check my phone again, and feel the same ache when I saw nothing. He was slipping away, and I was the only one trying to hold on. One day, I called just to hear his voice. It went to voicemail, so I left one. "Hey, just thinking about you. Hope everything's okay. No pressure to call back. Just wanted to hear you." I hung up and stared at the wall, embarrassed, empty. He didn't call back. The next time we spoke, it was because I ran into him by accident. I was walking through the park, our park, where we used to have picnics, where we once danced barefoot in the grass. And there he was, sitting on a bench, scrolling through his phone. Alone. I approached slowly. "Hey!" He looked up, startled, then forced a smile. "Hey! Wow! Hey!" I asked how he was. He said, "Busy." I asked if he'd been avoiding me. He said, "Not intentionally." I asked if we were okay. He hesitated. "I don't know." That broke something in me. Not the uncertainty. I could handle doubt. But the apathy, the casual way he dropped, "I don't know." Like it wasn't unraveling the world I thought we were building. That was what hollowed me out. I walked away without saying goodbye. I made it around the corner before the tears came, sharp and sudden. That night, he texted me. "I'm sorry if I've been distant. I just have a lot going on." I typed, "I understand. Let me know when you're ready to talk." He replied with a single word. "Sure," not "I will," not "I want to," just "sure." And in that one syllable, I saw the end forming. No closure, no honesty. Just a slow fade wrapped in politeness. That's the thing about losing someone who used to love you loudly. The silence becomes unbearable. We had planned a weekend away, just the two of us, no distractions. A cozy Airbnb near the coast, where the mornings smell like salt and the nights are thick with stars. It was supposed to be our reset. My idea, of course. I thought maybe, if I could just get us out of the routine, out of the silence, out of the weight of everything unsaid, maybe he'd remember how it felt to love me. I booked the train tickets, sent him the itinerary. He replied with a thumbs-up emoji. No words, just that. I told myself it was fine. The day arrived. I packed my bag the night before, folded his sweatshirt he always forgot at my place, and slipped it inside. Printed our tickets. I even bought his favorite snacks for the ride. I got to the station early. It was overcast, one of those gray mornings that feels like it's holding its breath. I stood under the digital board, watching the minutes tick closer to departure. People rushed past, dragging suitcases, holding hands, sipping coffee. I kept checking my phone. No messages. 10 minutes before departure, I called him. No answer. 5 minutes. Called again, straight to voicemail. The final boarding call echoed through the speakers. My heart was racing now, not with excitement, but with dread. I stared down the platform, hoping, pleading, to see him walking toward me. But he didn't come. The doors closed. The train pulled away. And I stood there, alone, clutching 2 tickets and a sinking feeling I could no longer ignore. He texted me an hour later. "Something came up. Sorry. We'll go another time." I didn't reply. I just sat on a bench outside the station, numb, the wind tangling my hair as I tried to breathe through the sting. It wasn't about the trip. It wasn't about the money or the effort or the missed train. It was about the choice. He didn't choose me. Not that morning. Not lately. Maybe not ever. I finally saw it. Not just the cracks, but the collapse. The man who once said he couldn't imagine life without me had already started building one where I didn't exist. My birthday came 2 weeks later. I tried not to make a big deal out of it. I didn't throw a party. I didn't post a countdown or drop hints. All I really wanted was him, a simple dinner, a card, maybe flowers, or even just his voice saying, "I'm glad you're here." That morning, I woke up to silence. No message, no call, not even a lazy happy birthday text. Nothing. I kept refreshing my phone, convinced there had to be some mistake. Maybe he was planning something. Maybe he was going to show up later, holding balloons and smiling like the man who once held my face in his hands and called me his forever. By noon, I still hadn't heard from him. I went to lunch with a few friends who tried their best to distract me. They gave me hugs, kind words, a candle that smelled like vanilla and hope. I smiled, thanked them, pretended I was okay. But inside, I was unraveling. By the time the sun began to set, I gave in and sent him a message. "Hey, just wondering if you remembered today?" No response. At 10:17 p.m., long after the cake had gone stale and the messages from distant cousins had stopped rolling in, I got one word back. "Sorry, that's all. No name, no warmth, no effort. Just sorry." It hit harder than I expected. Not because I needed a celebration, but because I needed to feel like I still mattered to him. That I hadn't just become another number in his phone, another person slowly drifting into silence. I stared at the word for a long time, my thumb hovering over the screen. I wanted to reply, to ask why he was doing this, to demand an explanation, a reason, anything. But what's the point of pulling a goodbye out of someone who already left? That night, I sat in my dark kitchen with a slice of untouched cake and lit the candle by myself. No wish, no song, just the quiet flicker of a flame that would burn out in minutes, just like the last of my hope. I finally let the tears come, and this time, I didn't stop them, because I knew, deep down, he wasn't just slipping away anymore. He was gone. The last text came out of nowhere. It was a Tuesday, the kind of forgettable day where nothing monumental is supposed to happen. I was at work, half distracted by an email thread and a lukewarm coffee, when my phone buzzed. His name lit up the screen. After everything, after the birthday, the silence, the growing hollow in my chest, I still felt that stupid spark of hope. Maybe he was ready to talk. Maybe he realized what he was losing. Maybe. But it wasn't that. The message was short, cold, precise. "I'm moving. I think it's best we don't talk anymore. Take care." That was it. No, "I'm sorry." No, "Thank you." No explanation. No softness. Just an execution. My breath caught. The room tilted. The sounds around me, clicking keyboards, distant chatter, faded into static. I reread the message again and again, as if somehow it would change, as if I had misunderstood. But it stayed the same. Brutal. Final. I left work early, said I had a headache, which wasn't a lie. At home, I sank onto the floor beside my bed and stared at nothing. The tears didn't come right away. I was too stunned, too empty. How could someone who once memorized the shape of your hands, who knew the rhythm of your laugh, who promised you everything, end it like that? A handful of words, typed out in seconds, sent like a memo. I didn't respond. What do you say to someone who ends your chapter without a single comma? I lay there for hours, scrolling back through our texts. The good mornings, the I miss yous, The inside jokes, the nights we stayed up sending heart emojis and half-sentenced confessions. All of it still there, like a ghost library of a life that never really existed. And then this final message, a grave marker. He didn't block me, he didn't erase me, but he made it clear he was gone. I should have deleted the message. But I didn't. I still haven't. Not because I want to remember it, but because some part of me needs to. Needs to remember that no matter how sweet someone sounds when they say, "I love you," it's how they leave that tells you who they really are. And that text? It didn't just end us. It shattered the version of me that believed he ever meant to stay. After the text, I stopped searching for answers. Not because I didn't want them. Believe me, I did. I wanted to understand why. Why he unraveled everything we built like it never mattered. Why he said forever and meant 5 months. Why I was left holding a version of love that apparently only existed in my own mind. But the truth? He wasn't going to give me answers. So I went looking for them myself. I started with the little things. I revisited conversations, looked at timelines. I checked his social media, the ones he thought I didn't know about. They'd been quiet before. Now they were curated. New photos, new comments, a new woman. She was beautiful, effortless, and oddly familiar. It took me a few days to realize she wasn't new at all. She was before me. Maya. The woman from the photo on his tablet. The one he said was the past. Except she was very much in his present, and apparently always had been. It hit like ice in the lungs. I stared at a picture of them at the coast. The same coast we were supposed to visit. The same dates. The same smiles. She was wearing his hoodie. My hoodie. The one he forgot at my apartment. He had just taken it back and given it to her like nothing had happened. That was when the story really cracked open. He hadn't just grown distant. He had been overlapping lives. I was never his only. I might not have even been his favorite. And as that reality sank in, the pain twisted into something sharper than heartbreak. Betrayal. All the questions I had about his absences, his deflections, the moments he'd vanish without reason, they weren't mysteries. They were choices. He had chosen to lie, to string me along, to give me pieces of himself while promising me the whole. And I had chosen to believe him. That was the part that stung the most. Not just that he lied, but that I ignored what I knew, my instincts, my gut. The red flags. All of them were there. But I wanted to be loved more than I wanted to be right. And now, with nothing left to hold on to, I finally stopped chasing closure. Because the truth wasn't going to set me free. The truth had already broken me. I never got to confront him. There was no dramatic showdown, no shouted questions in a parking lot, no tears running down my face while he looked away. That's what movies make you think closure looks like. Messy, loud, final. But in real life, sometimes the only confrontation you get is with silence. I wrote him a message once, not to win him back, not even to make him feel guilty, just to say what was burning a hole in my chest. It took me an hour to write. I just want you to know I loved you, fully, honestly. I gave you the best of me, even when it was hard. I trusted you, I rooted for you, and you didn't even have the decency to end it like a man. You don't owe me love, but you did owe me the truth. I didn't send it. I saved it in my drafts and read it to myself like a prayer. Because somewhere along the way, I realized he didn't deserve it. He didn't earn the right to hear how deeply he hurt me. He'd already made his choice to leave quietly, without explanation, without accountability. So I made mine. I said the words out loud in my apartment, alone, with the fan humming and the window open to the night. I said them like a ritual, not for him, for me. Then I deleted the draft, and I blocked his number, not out of anger, but because I couldn't keep checking for a message that would never come. I couldn't keep hoping that one day he'd show up with regret in his eyes and finally make it make sense. That moment, that hope, it was a weight I no longer wanted to carry. The next morning, I threw out the last reminders of him. The sweater, the photos, the concert ticket stub I'd been saving like a scrapbook page. Every item went into a box, every memory folded shut. Not to forget, but to stop bleeding. There was no apology, no redemption arc, no moment of remorse. Just me, standing in the middle of my living room, surrounded by quiet, and finally realizing I didn't need him to say he was sorry. I just needed to stop waiting for it. Healing wasn't a straight line. It didn't happen all at once, and it definitely didn't happen with some grand, empowering declaration. It was slower than I expected, quieter than I wanted. Sometimes, it felt like it wasn't happening at all. The first time I laughed again, really laughed, it caught me off guard. I was with friends, sitting in a small cafe, where the chairs wobbled and the coffee was always too strong. Someone said something ridiculous, and before I knew it, I was bent over, laughing so hard I had to wipe tears from my eyes. For a split second, I felt guilty, like I wasn't allowed to be okay yet. But then I realized this was part of it. Grief and laughter, rage and relief. They all exist together in the aftermath. I started doing things I hadn't done in months. Sleeping without my phone under my pillow, taking walks without hoping I'd run into him, rewatching old movies I used to love before they were ours. I found myself again, not in one bold moment, but in fragments. In the way I started cooking for myself again, not to impress anyone, just because I missed the smell of rosemary in my kitchen. In the way I changed my sheets, bought new pillowcases, lit candles for no reason at all. I even rearranged my furniture, moved the couch, switched the art around. My therapist called it claiming space. I called it starting over without starting over. And slowly, the pain began to fade, not disappear, but soften. He would still show up sometimes, in a stranger's laugh, in the scent of a cologne, in the curve of someone's handwriting. But instead of breaking me, those moments became reminders. Not of what I lost, but of what I survived. There were still nights I missed him. That's the truth no one tells you about moving on. It doesn't always mean you stop loving them. Sometimes it means you love them, and still choose yourself anyway. So I did, one small, brave decision at a time. And when I looked in the mirror, weeks later, something was different. I didn't see the girl who waited by the phone. I didn't see the woman who begged for a breadcrumb of affection. I saw someone who had been hurt, deeply, but who didn't stay broken. I saw me, and that was enough. It's strange, really, how someone can enter your life like a sunrise and leave like a storm. For a long time, I thought I'd never stop hurting. I thought the ache he left behind would follow me like a shadow, echoing in every quiet room, in every almost love. But slowly, life softened around the edges. I stopped counting the days since his last text. I stopped checking who viewed my stories. I stopped wondering if he missed me. One evening, months later, I stood on my balcony, watching the city breathe. The sun was low, spilling gold across the rooftops, and I was wrapped in a blanket, holding a cup of tea I made just for myself. No distractions, no expectations, and for the first time in what felt like forever, I felt peace. Not because everything made sense, it didn't. Not because he apologized, he never did, but because I had finally reclaimed the silence he left behind. People always ask how you know when you've healed. I think it's when you no longer want to rewrite the ending. I don't want revenge. I don't want a second chance. I don't want him to regret it. I just want to be free. And I am. I've learned that heartbreak doesn't mean you're broken. It means you loved, honestly, deeply, bravely. And that's nothing to be ashamed of. I still believe in love. I still believe in staying up too late talking, in forehead kisses, in shared playlists, in building something slow and real. I still believe someone will look at me and see not just what I offer, but who I am. But this time, I'll believe in myself first. If someone wants to stay, they'll stay. If they don't, I'll let them go. With grace, not desperation. Because I've already made it through the part I thought would break me. And I'm still here. Still whole. still open. So if you're listening to this now, and your heart is heavy, know this. You will not feel like this forever. You are allowed to mourn what never became. You are allowed to miss them and move on. You are allowed to begin again. And when the right person comes, they won't leave you guessing. They will show up. They will stay. And you'll know the difference. For now, just breathe, let go, and trust that the best parts of your story are still unwritten. Good night, love.